Niccolo Paganini was born on October 27, 1782, in the Italian city of Genoa. His father Antonio worked as a port loader and played mandolin, and married to Teresa Bocciardo. Niccolo was the third child of 6. Antonio began to teach him to play the mandolin at age 5 and switched to violin at age 7. Being forced to practice up to 15 hours a day, he became sickly and fragile child. Aged 13, he went to Parma to study under Alessandro Rolla and Gasparo Ghiretti. Aged 15, he started touring Italy. He was the first to use violin playing by heart rather than from sheet music in concerts. Aged 18, he got rid of his father's guardianship, but his gambling habits started. Once, he pawned his violin in order to settle his debts. To play a concert, he was then lent a Guarneri violin by a wealthy merchant, who eventually gave it to him after hearing him play. This violin, the canon, became his inseparable companion. In 1801, he fell in love with a noble lady who played a guitar, and at her estate, he lived for 3 years, composing guitar pieces. Around this period, he started to write his most famous work, the 24 Caprices. Tall, slight, and handsome, he was known as a womanizer. From 1805 to 1808, he was the court solo violinist at Lucca, appointed by Napoleon's sister, Elisa Bacciochi, with whom he had an affair. At the age 28, he became a freelance soloist and performed throughout Italy for the next 14 years. When he was 43, with Antonia Bianchi, they had a son, Achilles. Next year, his Violin Concerto No. 2 was composed. In 1827, Pope Leo XII honored Paganini with the Order of the Golden Spar. Soon, Antonia and Paganini parted, having achieved sole custody of his son. For the next 6 years, he toured around Europe, demanding larger fees to ensure prosperous future of his son. He had reached great success during this period. The Paganini phenomenon had a strong influence on the work of composers. In 1834, he returned to his native land as poor health was finally undermined by exhausting tours. He finally lost his voice in 1838, and he died of larynx cancer on May 27, 1840, in Nice, France, aged 57. He died without receiving the last rites, and his local church refused to bury his body. In 1896, Paganini was finally buried in La Villetta Cemetery in Parma. He lived in the world for 57 years, and for 56 years, his remains wandered around Italy in search of a last resting place. Paganini was simplicity itself. He preferred solitude. A cup of chocolate sufficed for a meal. But most of all, he loved his son, Achilles. He was an exemplary father. The love and support between father and son were rock solid from beginning to an end. Not one word of frustration is uttered by him regarding his responsibilities as a single parent. Paganini had a few close friends, including Rossini and Berlioz. After the concert of Berlioz in 1838, Paganini was so moved and took his son to the backstage, but he was almost losing his voice. So Achilles, putting his ear close to his father's lips, and guessed the words he uttered. "My father says, sir, he had never been in his life been so powerfully impressed at a concert." Rossini once said, "In my life, I had to cry 3 times, and my 3rd time was when I heard Paganini play." Paganini entertained his audiences with his incredible techniques, but audiences were said to have burst into tears at his tender passages. All his life, he was called the devil's violinist. But I believe he was a tender man at heart.